I'm going to discuss something that seems like a fairly simple principle to me, but for some reason it seems to need clarification in the times in which we live. And I'm going to first talk about two things. I'm going to talk about the notion of masking or wearing masks, which is something I've talked about many times before. And I want to talk about vaccines, which are of course more in the news now than ever before. Now in the past, I have to admit, I never was that, I didn't feel that strongly about vaccines one way or the other. I did think that, sometimes I saw bad faith arguments being made sometimes against people who were suspicious of vaccines by calling them anti-vaxxers, and other things like that. And I was generally sympathetic to the idea that if you aren't comfortable with vaccinating yourself or your children, that you shouldn't have to. But I didn't think about it that much. I didn't bring that much thought to bear on the matter. But now that we're in this state of things right now, where it's being insisted increasingly more and more that we ought to wear masks, that we're doing something wrong by our fellow man, that it's not that we're injuring ourselves, that's not what they're saying anymore. They're not saying, by not wearing a mask you're gonna get sick. They don't say that anymore. Now they say, by not wearing a mask you're gonna spread this disease to somebody who's vulnerable and you're gonna kill them. I mean, that's the line they're taking right now. That was never, as far back as I can remember, I've been alive almost 50 years. I don't remember that line ever being taken before. But it's sort of par for the course for this whole lockdown mentality, this whole psyop that they're trying to engage us in. And, part of this trying to push the guilt towards, or push the onus towards the healthy. If you are somebody who is not healthy, then of course it makes sense. Take care of yourself. If you're somebody who's vulnerable health-wise, and getting something like the flu or some virus, might actually push you over the edge and kill you, then, take precautions. But now it's become, oh no, we all have to do these things. And if we don't do these things, if we don't wear masks, then we are guilty of killing these vulnerable people. It's just lousy thinking. It's bad faith thinking. It's something that has never ever been promulgated before. But getting back to the subject of masks and vaccines, it seems to me that the conversation about masks and vaccines is similar. Now, let's forget for a second about the question about whether masks actually work, or if they are in fact not just that they don't just not keep the disease out, but they're actually harmful in some cases, that the diseases can land on your mask and make you sick more easily, which is what I've heard in some cases. And of course we've heard about vaccines from some people who think that vaccines are just bad news all around. Other people are more like, well, no, vaccines can work in certain circumstances, but we have to be careful about it. And it's become an industry, and the vaccine makers need to be held accountable in ways that they aren't currently being held accountable. So there's all sorts of shades of belief on that particular front. It all just doesn't come down to, oh well, you're either for taking vaccines or you're an anti-vaxxer. The way that they've, the stark way that they've tried to portray this debate. But putting all that aside, let's just assume for a second that masks work, that masks keep away disease, keep away illness, and let's also assume that vaccines work. That if you take a vaccine, it involves taking a part of the disease, and that taking part of the disease antibodies inoculates you from actually getting the disease. This is the notion of, vaccinations, how vaccinations supposedly work. So let's just assume that both of those are true. Let's just assume that masks work, that if you go out wearing a mask, you are much more likely not to acquire a virus or a flu or whatever. And let's just assume that if you get a vaccine, you are inoculated against getting the disease that the vaccine is for. All right, with that in mind, there's still something that absolutely makes no sense whatsoever. And that is this. Okay, you believe that wearing a mask will help you, right? So you go out in public wearing a mask. You wear a mask wherever you go. When you're in the grocery store, when you're taking a walk outside. Like I've said, I've even seen people wearing masks in their cars. Again, I'm putting aside my incredulity. I'm putting aside my response to masks. I'm also putting aside the political message of compliance that is sent by masking today, which I've talked about in a previous video. Put all that aside, okay? You believe that masks are effective. Masks are effective. We're just going to stipulate that for argument's sake. So you wear your mask, okay? And yet you get angry with other people going out not wearing their masks. Why? You've got your mask on. You're safe, right? If somebody else is going out there not wearing a mask, well, how are you vulnerable to him? You're wearing your mask. You're safe. Masks work, right? If it's true that masks work, and you wouldn't be wearing a mask, I would assume, if you didn't think that masks work, then why would you, why do you care one way or the other whether somebody else wears a mask, unless you care about that person personally, unless you think, oh no, that person is going to be is probably going to get sick because he's not wearing a mask. But that's not the argument. The argument is because he's not wearing a mask, he's going to spread the disease around, and that's what makes him a bad person for not wearing a mask. All right, vaccines, same principle, right? You believe in vaccines, and again, for argument's sake, let's say vaccines work. So you take a vaccine, okay? That means you're inoculated from getting the disease. So what do you care then if other people out there decide not to get vaccines because they don't think it's safe, or for religious reasons, or for whatever kind of reasons? If they don't get vaccines, yet you have taken a vaccine, your family have taken vaccines, your kids have taken vaccines, then how are they rendered less safe by other people not taking vaccines? Again, we're stipulating here that vaccines work, okay? You've got the vaccine. Your loved ones all have the vaccine. Your kids have the vaccine. They go to school with kids who don't have the vaccine. They're safe. Your kids are safe, right? It's the kids who don't have the vaccine that aren't safe in your mind, anyway. And again, just stipulating this notion that vaccines work. And so this whole idea of making this, rendering what used to be personal responsibility, I've got to take care of myself, I've got to take care of my own, I've got to protect myself and my own to the best of my ability. Now it becomes this, oh, well, it's everybody's responsibility. Everybody has to stay home. Everybody has to stay 6 feet away from everybody else. Everybody has to wear a mask. Everybody has to get a vaccine, or else they're killing people. Do you see how intellectually dishonest that is at its very core? Do you not see that? And this whole this whole notion that you are guilty of killing people if you don't do what the authorities tell you to do in these particular ways, like, even if the authorities are right, even if they're right about masks working, even if they're right about vaccines working, you aren't killing anybody, you aren't hurting anybody but yourself in that case by not doing these things. So so this whole notion of trying to make it into collective guilt, trying to, and again, it's happened in the twinkling of an eye. I don't remember ever in January of this year, in February of this year, I don't remember ever hearing anybody say, if you don't wear a mask, if there's a pandemic and you don't wear a mask, you are going to be responsible for killing people. I've never heard people say before March of this year, before March of 2020, I don't believe it was ever said, unless I missed out on it, and that's possible, but I don't recall it ever being said that if you go out of there needs to be a mass quarantine called a lockdown, where everybody has to retreat into their homes and not have any interaction with anybody else. And if you go interact with anybody else, then you are responsible for killing people. I've never heard that notion voiced before, but 8 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago. Does that not, do people not think? Do people not think about these things, that suddenly these notions, these ideas are out there that are totally novel, that don't make any sense when you really think about them, as I've explained here? Do they not understand? Do you not understand that you're getting messed with, that you're getting played with, that you're getting scammed? Forget whether the virus is a scam or not. I'm not saying the virus is a scam. I don't know enough to know that it is or that it isn't. But this rhetoric, this is scam rhetoric. This is bogus rhetoric. This is worse than bogus. This is malevolent rhetoric, which tries to whip people up into a frenzy of anger against the non-compliant, against the non-conformist, against the one who doesn't buy what they're selling, the one who says, well, you know what, actually, Mr. Jones, I'm not going to drink that Kool-Aid. Thanks a lot for the offer, but I'm going to refrain from drinking your Kool-Aid. Then everybody else turns on that person and says, "Yeah, you're a bad person. How dare you not drink the Kool-Aid that the rest of us are all drinking?" And that person will just say, "Well, fine, you drink your Kool-Aid. You can even have mine. Look, here's my cup of Kool-Aid. Drink it. You can have a double dose." And this is Jim Jones. This is the People's Temple on a mass scale. It's that same mentality, and I just had to express that here. Had to convey that here. So thanks for watching. Let me know what you think. My name's Andy Nowicki. You can read about my work at altrightnovelist.com or lowstatusnovelist.blogspot.com. Please follow my ongoing series of articles entitled "The Lockdown is a PSYOP," which are published at Affirmative Right and also at lowstatusnovelist.blogspot.com. Thanks for watching. Talk to y'all soon.